Welcome to Acres of Reed Homemade Tortillas. Here's what you'll need to begin with. Half a teaspoon baking powder, half a cup of shortening. I had Butter Crisco on hand, so that's what I've used. A whole teaspoon of salt and 4 cups of flour. I've got 3 cups in the food processor already. Go ahead and put the 4th in. I have a lovely assistant. Get everything into the food processor. There's the baking soda. There's the salt. There's the spilled salt. You can use lard instead of the shortening. You can even use oil, but this shortening really works out fine. Lard we have used before, but sometimes it can go bad on you and you don't realize it and you're ready to make tortillas. Now we used to do this by hand. Go ahead and get the lid on that. We used to do this by hand, and you still can do it by hand. The only thing is it takes a little bit longer and just a lot easier to do it this way. So go ahead and just pulse it. You're just trying to cut all of the fat into the powder. Okay, let's open it up. Just looking for a really coarse, kind of a cornmeal texture. Nice and blended. Alright, lid back on. Now you also need 1 cup of really warm water. I like to pour it in as we're pulsing, so you don't have a liquid pool at the bottom. And just add the entire cup of warm water. Now this is going to actually make 16 good size tortillas. We're a family of 7, so that works out pretty good for us. If you want, it easily cuts in half. We've done 8 batches. You could even turn this into 12 really big burrito size. Keep pulsing it until it starts to come together. You can hold it for a few seconds at a time. You'll see, there you go, stop. You'll see the batter start to ride the blade. That's when you want to stop. And we're going to turn it on to a, well, 1 second, back there. We're going to turn it on to a blue mat. You could also just put it onto your counter. Dump it all out. You don't really need to knead this. In fact, you don't want to knead it. You're not trying to develop gluten. You just want to get it to all come together. So we're just going to dump it out. Give it a quick mush all together to come together. There we go. Now get it into a nice ball. It will be moist. It will be sticky. That's okay. At this point you want to wrap it up. You can use a couple of wet paper towels, but paper towels fall apart and get sticky and, well, they cost money. So I tend to just cover it with a wet tea towel and just wrap it completely. Let it rest for 15 minutes and then you can come back. Okay, back to our tortillas. Here they are. They've rested for 15 minutes. It's a very, very moist dough, and that's exactly what you want. Now, I want to divide this into 16, so I'm going to divide it in half. Make sure they're about the same. Pretty close. I have a scale. Sometimes I weigh it. Then I'm going to divide them in half again. So I'll need 4 each out of these. You just keep breaking them down. 4, 2, 4 becomes 2 all the way through. Doesn't really matter about rolling it perfectly circular right now. The important thing is that you get it out and resting. Once we get these 16 tortillas resting, they'll need to sit another 15 minutes to 1 hour. Really don't recommend working with it beyond that. And remember, it takes time to work with it, so if you start at 15, your first batch may be 15 and your second batch may not be worked until the 45-minute mark. So I prefer just leave them the 15 minutes and start. Here we go. We've got our 16 tortillas. We're going to cover them up with that same wet cloth. Just let it stay nice and moist, keep them hydrated. Another 15 minutes. Welcome back to the next step of the tortillas. They've rested 15 minutes. Now you have a nice soft ball. You want to do a very light sprinkling of flour. Flatten it down into a bit of a disc. If you need to, sometimes you'll have to also flour your rolling pin, but for the most part you don't. Start in the middle, roll down, start in the middle, roll out, flip it, middle, down, and you just keep going like that. You'll end up with relatively round, very thin tortillas. Keep going from the middle out, from the middle down, applying more flour as necessary, and you want to just try to roll it into a nice semicircle. We have been known to get the state of Texas. We have been known to get, what was Africa?
Yes, Africa.
The continent of Africa. We've been known to have bats, but we try for a relatively uniform shape. Sometimes you'll get them so thin that they actually tear. That's okay. Worst thing you'll have to do is squish it up in a ball and roll it out again. Don't be afraid of the flour, but definitely don't coat it in flour. You really won't taste that unless you coat it heavily. We need to flip our tortilla that's already on the stove. This is a medium-high heat. It only needs 30 seconds to a minute to cook. Usually just enough time to roll out a few. You want to continue working from the middle out. If you get any really thin edges, you can kind of smoosh them back up. Checking the tortilla. There's good color. All you want is that color, that very pale brown, golden brown spot. We're going to put it onto a plate with the others, lined with a towel, and that's just so you can keep them soft and warm and flexible. We'll put the next one on the heat, and while that's going, start again. The tortillas are really just that easy. Grab it, see a little bit broke off, just pinch it back on. Grab it, it should be very thin like paper. Put it on, it's hot, you've got just a minute to adjust it. And that's it. You just keep repeating all the way through until you're done. These are much, much cheaper than store-bought tortillas, and I think they're a whole lot tastier. Store-bought tortillas around here run $2, even $2.50 for a dozen. And a lot of times you don't get a dozen, you get 10 or 8. But this, 4 cups of flour, basically 4 cups of flour, and you've got 16. That's a good ratio no matter how you look at it. A little bit of work, but it is worth it. They won't be perfectly circular. Maybe if you're really good and I'm not, you can. But I'm not interested in perfectly circular as long as it's able to get stuffed with burrito filling or quesadilla filling or whatever you're going to be doing. So that's it. That's how easy tortillas are.